Receipt lands, total climbs, bags shrink. In September 2025, food at home rose 1.2% year over year, about $6 more on a $500 grocery month. One market closed, the next locks basics behind glass. The bus skips your stop. Seniors drop produce. Parents stretch noodles. 10 cities face this, meals or miles. The paycheck stretches thinner. The grocery bags get lighter. The big store on the corner is temporarily closed for reset for the third week in a row. We drive farther for milk, pay more for bread, and spend the evening in traffic instead of at the table. How many detours does it take before a neighborhood stops being a neighborhood? City number 1, Chicago. On the south and west sides, several full-line supermarkets have pulled out, leaving dark windows and papered doors that sit for months. In recent months, the share of blocks with poor access to a full grocery has crept toward roughly 1 in 4 across the most fragile areas. In plain terms, a basic food trip now takes an extra 20 to 30 minutes each way. For an older adult with a cane or a caregiver between shifts, that is another bus fare, another gallon of gas, another hour not paid. City number 2, New Orleans. When one anchor shuts, the small shops around it fade. Night shifts mean empty shelves by late evening and fewer fresh options in the morning. In the last quarter, about 1 in 10 expected grocery transactions simply did not happen. People cut items, postpone shopping, or try somewhere farther out. A worker leaving a late shift finds the lights off at the only store nearby and ends up eating from a vending machine. This is how a food desert begins, not with a headline, but with a lock on a door and a map that pushes the nearest produce aisle farther away. Closing one anchor removes competition for a whole zip code. The basket gets pricier and smaller. Trips get longer. Families start choosing shelf-stable calories over fresh food. City budgets scramble to fund mobile markets and emergency food boxes, costs that were not in last year's plan. "I'm not asking for a discount," a 50-plus neighbor says at the bus stop. "I'm asking for a store within 2 stops." When those doors close, a new bill opens, security, and we pay it at the register whether we notice or not. Security costs, glass cases where baby formula used to sit, a buzzer for razors, a staffer with a key walking aisle to aisle while a line forms behind you. The bill for those locks and guards is not on a separate receipt. It is folded into the price of milk and cereal and into the decision to close early. City number 3, San Francisco. Downtown corridors now run on shorter schedules and slimmer assortments. More items are kept behind plastic. Fewer lanes are staffed after dusk. Over the past year, store security spending has climbed by a double-digit share. For a mid-size market, that translates into a few extra dollars on the average household basket, week after week. Families see it as, "Why is this total higher?" not as a line called protection. City number 4, Washington, D.C. Neighborhood shops have moved large portions of everyday goods to locked displays. Self-checkout replaces clerks in the evening, and closing times creep earlier. Losses from theft and damage have risen enough in recent months that several locations trimmed operating hours by roughly a tenth. For shift workers, that means the doors are shut when the shift ends. Dinner turns into a grab-and-go kit that costs more and feeds less. This is the math retailers do and residents pay for. When loss climbs, companies add guards, cameras, and insurance. Those costs raise shelf prices. Higher prices reduce foot traffic after work. Thinner sales make managers cut hours or cut the store entirely. The next nearest full-line market takes over, but with higher demand and the same headcount, it cannot keep up at night. People get used to seeing empty dairy cases by 8 p.m. The consequences spill beyond the register. Seniors who once shopped mid-evening now try the morning bus, only to find a shorter staffed window and longer waits for help with locked goods. Parents juggling 2 jobs skip fresh produce because the produce section closes before they arrive. Independent grocers that hold the line on locks eat the cost until margins vanish. Then, the temporary closure sign goes up. We are told these measures are temporary, yet every week they feel more permanent. More alarms, more acrylic, more staff tied to keys instead of stocking. It is not just an inconvenience. It is a quiet price rise and a shrinking schedule at the same time. And for neighborhoods already down 1 supermarket, a shortened day can feel like no store at all. A lock on a shelf becomes a lock on a budget. When protection turns into a routine expense, the cart cannot outrun it. We looked at the sticker. We need to look at the hidden miles behind that sticker. Logistics and fuel. City number 5, Honolulu. The truck arrives by ship, not by highway. When fuel climbs and sailings thin, shelves feel it within days. This season, local cost of living trackers show the share of a family's budget spent on food in the islands has ticked up by a few percentage points compared with last year. In plain terms, the same basket takes more from the paycheck, and specials vanish faster because restocks come less often. Parents plan around delivery days. Miss one, and milk is gone by noon. City number 6, Anchorage. Weather and distance decide what is for dinner. Several neighborhoods now face a bus ride that can stretch close to an hour each way to reach a full-line grocer, according to recent city access maps. That turns a routine trip into half a day. And without a car, it often means paying more at a corner shop for fewer, pricier calories. When roads close or routes are cut, the big store pushes deliveries back, the bread aisle thins, and families juggle 2 smaller trips instead of 1 planned stock-up. Here is how the math stacks up. Fewer runs from warehouse to store means higher unit costs. Higher unit costs lift shelf prices. Higher prices reduce evening demand, so managers cut hours and trim orders, which further spaces out deliveries. Once a route is scaled back, it rarely returns quickly. The next outage or storm resets the clock. Households respond by shopping more often for less, paying more in transit and fees, and arriving to find limits on basics because shipments are rationed. For older residents and shift workers, the logistics show up as lost time. A missed transfer turns into a missed dinner. Carrying groceries farther raises the risk of skipping fresh food altogether. The budget pays twice, once at the pump or fare box, and again at the register. Over a season, that squeeze becomes a rule, not a bad week. We can call it supply chain, but on the ground, it is a longer ride, an emptier shelf, and a larger bill. The cart moves the same distance in the store, but the road to reach it keeps getting longer. When the road eats the check, something else gives. The next hit does not arrive on a loading dock. It lands at the kitchen table. Household strain. City number 7, Detroit. A car city where many homes do not have a car. City analyses this winter show roughly 4 in 10 households living without one, which turns a basic grocery run into 2 bus transfers and close to an hour each way. That is not a trip. That is a shift. When the only full supermarket is miles from the block, people stretch food longer, skip fresh items that bruise on the ride, and pay more at corner stores for fewer calories. Miss one bus and dinner becomes whatever fits in a backpack. For older residents, the walk from the stop with heavy bags is the barrier that decides between vegetables and the boxed aisle. A delayed route, a slick sidewalk, or a cold night does not just add discomfort, it rewrites the menu and the weekly budget at the same time. City number 8, Philadelphia. In the latest year of local charity counts, more than 3 in 10 children are in households that report not having enough to eat at some point during the month. That number does not live on paper. It shows up in longer food bank lines on Fridays and in cafeterias, where staff see students hoard lunch items for later. When the nearest full grocer is far and the neighborhood store charges more for basics, families buy filling starches instead of produce and protein. Healthcare visits creep up for issues linked to diet. Parents spend their off hours chasing deals across town, and small emergencies, a broken shoe, a flu prescription, erase the grocery envelope entirely. Here is how it compounds at the kitchen table. The basket costs more, so something else gives first. A copay, a utility, a bus pass. Less cash means fewer large trips, which means more small purchases at higher prices, which means nutrition slips and medical costs rise. That forces more time off or extra shifts, which tightens money again. A circular trap forms. Thin food budgets make health worse, and worse health drains the same money needed for food. For a worker on rotating shifts, this is not theory. It is the moment you choose between a discount across town or a closer store with half the selection. It is a missed refill because the clinic hours overlap with the only bus. It is a long month turning longer without any new income. "I can carry 2 bags," a neighbor in her 60s says, "but I cannot carry the distance." It would be good if personal effort could fix this. It cannot. When time, transport, and prices move against a household at once, the outcome is baked in, and it spills beyond the front door. If the home budget bends this hard, the city budget is next. Local budgets. City number 9. Oakland. When anchor stores leave, the block goes dark, and the cash register at City Hall grows quiet. The budget office now plugs a hole measured in hundreds of millions across the current and next cycles, which means fewer dollars for patrols, lighting, and road work, just as retailers ask for more of all three. In the same span, sales tax from everyday shopping has slipped against last year, a small percentage on paper that becomes a big cut to library hours, street repairs, and transit frequency. You feel it first at dusk. Fewer guards in the lot, fewer open lanes, fewer deliveries after dinner. The neighborhood follows the anchor. Small shops lose foot traffic and trim schedules. Part-timers see shifts disappear, then depend on tips that are no longer there. With less payroll, households reduce grocery trips and buy closer, where prices are higher and selection is thin. That pushes receipts down again, and the city's revenue drops another step. A tighter budget delays pothole fixes and cuts back a bus route. Now the store is harder to reach, and the parking feels less safe, so the next closure arrives faster. What looked like one lease ending becomes a loop that drains both kitchens and city funds. This is not theory to the people running tills. A manager keeps a sign behind the counter, card only after 8 p.m., because the armored pickup was canceled to save costs. A cashier who worked evenings is moved to mornings. Her second job conflicts. Her rent payment slips by a week. A delivery driver loses the late route when the store closes an hour earlier. His paycheck shrinks. His family switches from a full shop to what's left after work. "I used to plan my week around 2 steady shifts," a resident in his early 60s says. Now the schedule changes, and the store might not be here by winter. How do you plan a life on that? Here is the chain in plain steps. Retail exits trigger lower sales tax. Lower sales tax forces service cuts. Service cuts raise shrink and insurance costs. Higher costs push another store out. Each turn adds time to a grocery run and dollars to the basket, while city accounts get thinner. A block with 1 dark storefront becomes a corridor with 3. then a district you pass by at night. It is tempting to call this a local problem, but the pattern repeats in other counties that leaned on big boxes to hold a budget together. Once the cornerstones go, rebates end, special districts unravel, and the remaining shops carry fees that push prices higher. Households pay twice, first at the register, then through weaker public services that make every errand slower and riskier. The hard truth is simple. When the city ledger shrinks, the grocery aisle feels it before the headlines do. Last city. City number 10. Jackson. The grocery list is short, the drive is long, and the bus comes when it can. Blocks of modest homes sit between shuttered storefronts and corner counters that sell more soda than staples. Families plan meals around routes and daylight, not recipes. This is what happens when price and distance rise together. You do not just spend more, you spend time you do not have. Here is the plain status. A large share of neighborhoods here are officially both low income and far from a full-line supermarket. For many households, that means an extra half hour to 3/4 of an hour for each food run, and that is before the return trip. In practice, a worker on shifts swaps fresh produce for packaged calories at the nearest counter because the last bus back from the big store does not line up with closing time. The bill is higher and the cart is lighter, and the week starts behind. The strain spreads. When fewer full stores operate, delivery trucks skip marginal routes, so shelves empty faster and promotions disappear. Landlords in small plazas raise common fees to cover security and insurance, so remaining tenants cut hours. Shorter hours push more shoppers into crowded windows, and tempers and losses rise. Clinics see more patients for diet-sensitive conditions, and those appointments mean missed shifts. Missed shifts mean less rent money. The circle closes. Households pay the toll in steps you can count. Longer travel turns a single shop into a 2-bus errand. 2 buses become ride-hails on rainy days. A few rides equal a week of eggs. When the paycheck is thin, the first cut is the big stock-up trip, then the prescription, then the light bill's full amount. Late fees arrive before coupons do. The city feels it too. With fewer registers ringing, sales tax softens and service cuts follow. Fewer streetlights stay on, fewer routes run late, and fewer repairs happen on time. That makes a store opening in a soft market even less likely. A grocer runs the numbers and chooses another county. Another block watches for lease signs fade in the sun. This ending is not about willpower or shopping habits. It is about access that costs more with every mile and every minute, until the basics no longer fit inside a paycheck. When price, distance, safety, and time all tilt the wrong way, even careful families fall short, and careful stores fold. The next move is already drafted. A major chain has posted a notice that hours will be cut across several locations nearby, and the transit board is preparing a schedule change that drops late evening service on 2 lines. If both land at once, the last reliable window to reach a full grocery may close before winter is out.